Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and this is Taking Care of Business. Joining me today is Dan Kelly, President and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Thanks for joining us today, Dan.
Good to be with you, Mario.
All right, federal government had their fiscal update yesterday. Let's talk a little bit about what that meant for small businesses. Let's start, first of all, on the good side, Dan. What came out of that yesterday that you guys thought were great initiatives, I guess, for the small business community?
Well, look, I'd say the big picture equation with the economic statement was that the government still is, it appears, quite focused on the variant, on COVID relief and COVID supports. Obviously, there's some legislation right now winding its way through the House of Commons that lowers the bar. It actually makes it more difficult for small firms to access support, but the speech really did focus on the fact that may no longer be possible to try to take away some of the COVID support programs. And in fact, there were some new investments, new changes made that I think will help some small businesses deal with the after effect of the COVID emergency period. We are right now still only about a third of small businesses are at normal levels of sales. And the government did announce probably the biggest thing that we're happy about is an extension of the CEBA loans. You'll remember those Canada Emergency Business Account loans originally were $40,000 loans, now $60,000 loans maximum, and a total of up to $20,000 of that loan is forgivable if you repay it. The kicker, though, is that you have to repay that loan in full by the end of December of 2022, so about a year from now. And if you don't, then you lose the forgivable portion altogether. So we've said to Ottawa, that plan made sense when COVID was starting in March, April 2020, and we thought this might be a month or two. Now that this has dragged on for 2 years, businesses are not in the position to repay those loans anytime soon, and giving them more time will be helpful. There was no detail on how much extra time, though, they are going to give businesses. I've heard from some officials thinking that it might be an extra year. We were pushing for an extra 2, so there's still some more detail to come.
Okay, super. What are the things that still need to be done, I guess, for small businesses to keep them afloat, to keep them surviving in these challenging times?
Well, look, increasingly we're moving to a world where there are 2 camps of business owners. Our data shows at CFIB that about half of our members are able to operate now without government support. Their businesses are either back to normal or close to back to normal. But there's another half that is still very much dealing with the emergency phase, those especially in hospitality, in the tourism sector, services, arts and entertainment businesses. For them, the pandemic is very much real, because even if restrictions are no longer in place, although some provinces are now putting them back, but even if there are no new restrictions coming out of the Omicron variant, just the messaging has caused consumers to stay home. They're not seeing their sales come back. And so for them, they really need some ongoing help. The speech really did talk about the possibility of shifting gears and providing more supports to businesses, but it, as we expected, was light on detail. You know that the major programs, there's now 2 streams, the tourism and hospitality program and then a hardest hit subsidy program, both offering wage and rent supports. But to access those, you have to have either a 40 or 50% loss in sales. That's not just a 40 or 50% loss for the 12 months past, but also in the current month. And while many businesses are hard hit, they may not be down by half or more. As a result, they'll get no support. So that was a big missing piece of this speech. And we're actively pushing not just the government, but the opposition parties to fix the legislation, Bill C-2, that would make these changes happen.
So Dan, I follow your stuff a lot, right? The stuff that you put out on Twitter, et cetera, and I see some of the responses that you get, very critical responses, and I'll leave it at that. But
You got it.
How do you deal with that kind of segment out there that is critical about small businesses wanting more and wanting to be supported by the government? What do you
Yeah.
say to them in response to that?
It's an excellent question, Mario, and something I've thought an awful lot about. Look, I understand that many in the public are furious that we are just dumping cash into small businesses, billions and billions of dollars, to try to insulate small businesses from the impact of the pandemic. And some of them are members, some of them are small business owners that are saying, wait a minute, we can't afford as a country to continue to do this any longer. I get, and in fact, I even respect that point of view, because my organization has spent 50 years saying that business subsidies are a bad idea, that we should be not going down that road, even when government offers them. But what's different about this is that the businesses are losing income, not because they're bad businesses, not because the business owners made some terrible decision, but because government restrictions have limited their ability to serve their clients.
Yeah.
And even, as I was saying a second ago, even if the restrictions are lifted, the messaging from government to consumers to stay home, to limit their social circles, that in and of itself is causing businesses' incomes to dry up. That's not their fault. That's government policies and government advice that is causing their businesses to be limited in sales. And as a result, we believe it would be deeply unfair to expect the entrepreneurs to have to endure the weight of that themselves. If we're shut down or we're limited to protect society, well, that should be society that helps shore up the business income of those firms that are affected. But look, I've got criticism on all sides. I've been quite critical of the panic button that the public health officials are pushing right now, that is causing everybody to really worry and stay home once again. Possibility of new border restrictions obviously being discussed right now. I've been very critical of that. And some are saying, well, wait a minute, CFIB, you shouldn't be attacking or pushing for a reopening or stay open strategy. You, in fact, are causing the problem, causing the disease to be prolonged. Others are saying, what the heck, CFIB, you should be pushing to rip away all of the restrictions because businesses need to stand on their own 2 feet and you need to pivot. I understand both of those camps, but we're walking a real narrow line here. Trying to ensure that that we recognize we're still dealing with a deadly disease, but that we have to be measured in our response, and we can't just start throwing restrictions willy-nilly and causing panic, because that's not what's going to help us get through this.
Yeah, we're about 3 months away from it being 2 years. 2 years of this, like, what has that impact been on the number of small businesses in Canada? How many have we lost?
So the numbers are not yet in. In 2020, there were about 60,000 permanent business failures attributed to COVID. The number for 2021 has not been tallied, but I have to say that it's actually been lighter in terms of business failures over the pandemic so far. But I don't believe that we're out of the woods. I think a lot of the COVID damage in terms of business failures, business closures, and wind downs will actually be back-end loaded. A lot of the government support programs have kept small firms on life support for a period of time, or they've just been frozen. As these programs wind down, there are a lot of business owners that are going to look at their balance sheets, look at their income statements, and say, you know what, I don't see a pathway back to profitability. Even if I am able to pay my current month's bills, and many are not, how am I going to dig myself out of the debt that I've inherited? The average small firm across Canada having inherited $170,000 in COVID-related debt. These are the things that I worry about as we go into 2022. I don't think, sadly, that the economic damage is over. I truly believe that we'll get the healthcare issues under control before we get the economic issues that are associated with COVID under control. And then we have the legacy of government debt that all of us are going to be facing, with potential of higher taxes down the road to pay for the supports that have had to be in place over the COVID period.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks a lot, Dan, for joining us again today.
Anytime, Mario.
All right, super. That was Dan Kelly, President and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and this is Taking Care of Business. Thanks for joining us today.